last 2 years have been tough on everyone financially, especially artists and gig economy workers. Credit Canada is a nonprofit credit counseling agency committed to helping you make your debt, and the stress that comes with it, disappear. And they've got a few tricks up their sleeves. Visit creditcanada.com during November's Financial Literacy Month and learn the money management magic tricks you need to shred those overdue bills and get your finances back on track.
Are you stressed over unpaid bills and debts? Do you wish sometimes that the stress can just disappear? Credit Canada can be the magic in your life. We will turn your stress into happiness. Go to creditcanada.com to learn how to live a debt-free, stress-free life. Are you stressed because you have too many credit cards and too much debt? Do you wish to make that stress magically disappear? Credit Canada has the perfect debt solution to make it happen for you. Go to creditcanada.com to learn how to live a debt-free, stress-free life.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our event tonight. Didn't you love those magic tricks? If I could have a superpower, I think it would be to do some of those amazing tricks that set up our event tonight. Welcome to our event. My name is Bruce Sellery. I am the CEO of Credit Canada, Canada's oldest or longest standing nonprofit credit counseling agency. We've been around since 1966. That's a long, long period of time. I am also the money columnist for CBC Radio and for Cityline, which is a daily lifestyle show. And I've spent a lot of time on personal finance over the course of the last couple of decades. I've written a couple books, including Moolah La, why smart people do dumb things with their money and what you can do about it. And I did a reality show on the Oprah Network called $1 Million Neighborhood. So I have been focused, broadly speaking, on personal finance and how to make a difference for people in this area for a really long time. And I'm still here doing this, first of all, because I love it. I think it's really fun. But second of all, because my view is that it is one of the most important areas of life to focus on. Not because I want you to have the biggest house in the neighborhood, but because folks who have a certain level of financial well-being are going to be able to achieve what they want to achieve, support who they want to support, contribute to who they want to contribute, and have the life that they want to have. So here's our focus for tonight in Financial Literacy Month. Our focus is money magic, the four tricks you need to know to make your debt stress disappear. The four tricks. Let's see if this power. There it is. The four tricks you need to know to make your debt stress disappear. And as I said, it is Financial Literacy Month. So we have, for the month of November, been all over the place talking about magic, talking about making debt stress disappear on social media, in traditional media, at public events, in webinars. We've been doing a whole bunch of things over the course of this time. Now, on social, our hashtag is Money Magic, number one, or FLM 2021. And so as I yap away and talk about debt stress and, talk about all these methods to make it disappear, if you use those two hashtags, Money Magic and or FLM 2021, you will have a chance to win a copy of my book. How's that? Super easy. We will ship it off to you. We're going to make 3 copies available. So please tweet away and join us in that social media context. Now, this event is possible for a couple reasons. One, it is possible because of the extraordinary humans who have brought Credit Canada alive and delivered extraordinary service to clients over these decades. So we are here because of the work of people who've been working at Credit Canada and truly all nonprofit credit counselors across this country. We're also here tonight specifically because of the support of sponsors. So our platinum sponsor, a big shout out goes to Home Equity Bank. Home Equity Bank is the provider of the CHIP reverse mortgage. You've probably seen their TV commercials on the air. And their focus with that particular thing that they offer is empowering Canadian homeowners who are older than the age of 55 to age in place, to live in their home and access some of that home equity so that they can support themselves given their preference or their choice to live at home. So a big thanks to Home Equity Bank. Our objective in the next 45, 50 minutes is to really help make your debt stress disappear. And I've got 4 tricks that I'm going to talk about. It's funny because there's so many things that you can do when it comes to getting a handle on your money. And I feel like one of the best things that you could ever bring is a top hat. That's, my money dollar bill top hat. I will go to any lengths to engage people in the topic of money, including getting slimed. I'm shameless. I'll happily get slimed for that. But we're not going to get slimed. I don't even have my top hat here, though I do have, here's my one little trick. Okay, see the coin, see this coin, abracadabra. Oh my gosh, did you see what he just did there? It was amazing. Those are the kinds of tricks we're going to pull. Not really. Here are the 4 things. Number 1, we're going to talk about the trick of creating context. We're going to talk about the trick of finding clarity. We're going to talk about the trick of managing complexity, and we're going to talk about the trick of engaging your community. And some of you might be like, sounds really theoretical. Like that's really thinky. I promise you that we will get into hardcore, tactical, like do this, do that to help you get a handle on your debt stress. But I also promise that I'm going to challenge your thinking in this way, hopefully in ways that it has never been challenged before. And we're going to begin with talking about context. But as a part of context, I want to just acknowledge the different circumstances you may find yourself in as you dial into this event. So hooray that you're here. Awesome. And there's kind of a spectrum of debt stress. So on the one hand, there are people in our midst who are like, I'm a disaster. My situation is really problematic. I'm concerned about keeping my house. So that's, really, really tough. Other people are with us tonight and they're like, I'm amazing. I should be doing this presentation, not Bruce Sellery, because I'm so good at this. And if that's you, fantastic. And see if there's something that you could learn that you could provide to someone else who really does have some debt stuff that they need to deal with. And then most of you are probably somewhere in the middle. So not I'm worried about my house, and maybe not I'm amazing, but the outstanding debt you're trying to crush is $1,000 or $2,000. Maybe it's $5,000, maybe it's $30,000. I don't know what the number is. I just want to say that everybody brings something different to this particular event based on the circumstances that they have. Now, for questions, there is a little question button somewhere on your screen. I can't see your screen, but it's there. Please ask questions as we go along. My colleague Tanvi is going to be monitoring the questions. She's going to send them to me, and I'm going to endeavor to include as many as I can as the event unfolds. So, what do I mean by context? Context. Okay, here's how the word is defined. The setting in which an event occurs. And you're like, okay, what does that have to do with money? The setting in which the debt occurs. You could also think of this as the frame of this event. And there are so many things that are informing our time here today. We're still in a pandemic. We're in a period of pretty strong economic growth. The stock market is great. And yet the world has diverged into the haves and have-nots during the pandemic. The haves, white-collar jobs, working from home, not that that's not stressful, but you've got your income and nothing to spend your money on. And the have-nots, you've maybe lost your job or your income's dropped dramatically and you're in really, really tough circumstances. So the setting is a really important thing. And yet we don't talk about this as a notion. Another way to say context is, why do you want to reduce your debt stress? Why do you want to reduce your debt stress? And some of you are like, it's totally obvious. Isn't it that obvious? It's not obvious. And it does differ between people. People have different answers to that. So let's look at a different question. Why do you exercise? So there are people amongst us who exercise somewhat regularly, not like 6 days a week or anything, but say twice a week, you do something. Everyone who exercises has a different why. They've all got a different why. So some of you are like, I exercise as a stress buster. If I don't exercise, I'm going to be like crazy, which is me. That's totally me. Some of you exercise because it's fun. Like you never lost the playfulness of your childhood and you play pickup hockey, you go play soccer with your kids, you exercise because it's fun. Other people, their why on exercise is a challenge. Like they want to complete the 5K. They want to complete the Ironman. One of our credit counselors, staffers, Becky, just completed a marathon, like a full marathon. So for her, I think if she were here, she'd say, I exercise for the challenge and also probably the fun because she runs with her best friend. Some people exercise, their why is family. They want to be alive for their grandkids. And they know that if they exercise, there is a higher probability that they're going to be alive. Some of you, even though you wouldn't want to admit it, you exercise for a little bit of ego. Like you're like, okay, I'm just going to check myself out in the mirror and say, hey, handsome, how you doing? All right. No one really is probably going to admit that, but it's true. And then there is the reason, which I loved. It was a Globe and Mail headline. And the Globe and Mail headline said, I run so I can drink. I thought, oh my God, I love the honesty of that. There are many people who exercise as an offset to some of the vices that they have. So people who exercise have a context for it. They have an answer to the question, why do you exercise? People who have a handle on their debt stress, who are focused on it, who are working on it, who are empowered by it, they have a context for their getting a handle on their debt. If your answer to the why of exercise, like why do you exercise, if your answer was torture, if that was your answer, I'm not going to see you at the gym. I am never going to see you at the gym. So I want to bring that back to the question of debt, because I think this why is just so important. It's the foundation for everything. I want you to consider, why do you want to reduce your debt stress? And in the absence of you coming up with your own answer and articulating it, being very, very clear on it, there's actually two default contexts already there without you even doing anything. There's two default contexts. The first is, I'm a victim of my circumstances. My debt stress is about them. It's about them. So somehow something happened. It could be a former spouse. It could be a boss. It could be my parents. It could be a collection agency. It could be a lender. It's something else that is out there. And that's the context for my debt stress. For others, it's actually the opposite of that. Your default context on debt stress is, I'm a big loser and I can't get my life together. It's about me. It's not about them. It's about me. And, in reality, most people who are dealing with a ton of debt stress have a bit of a combination of the two. The challenge is neither of those contexts are very empowering. In fact, I'd say they're completely disempowering. It's either their fault or it's my fault. And if that's the setting, it is less likely that you're going to develop the plan, do the work, and all that stuff. What if you said, instead of it's them or it's me, you said the why of getting a handle on my debt stress is mental health. I am going to do all the work, and it is going to be work. I am going to do all the work to get a handle on my debt stress. Why? Because of my mental health. And I got to tell you, one of the most impactful personal finance books I have ever read is called The Year of Less. It's written by a woman from BC named Kate Flanders. And it is her story of, and this is the subline, how I stopped shopping, gave away my belongings, and discovered life is worth more than anything you can buy in a store. And it's a beautifully, beautifully written memoir about her journey. She basically set about to not shop, period, not shop for 12 months. So she could buy food, but no accessories, no clothing, nothing other than, what it would take to sustain herself. And she did all of those things for her mental health. That was her answer. And, as I say, there's a ton of work involved to do it, but her vested interest was very, very clear. Her why was very, very clear. So as you're sitting in your house, your bedroom, your living room, your office, wherever you are, some of you are probably in your car. We've got hundreds and hundreds of people who have joined us. And I think that's just fantastic. Wherever you are, think about your why. Like, if you were able to get rid of your debt stress, then what? What would be possible? What would be in it for you? What would have this be worth doing the work? And, some people would say it's about mental health, as I mentioned. For some people, it's about physical health. Like, you just know that this stress is costing you. It's increasing your heart rate. It's leading you to carry around weight that you don't want to be carrying around anymore. For some of you, it's about peace of mind. So even less, less broad than mental health. It's just simply that you're going to have peace of mind in the moment. For some of you, it's about family. And maybe it's the family dynamic with your spouse. Like, if you were able to crack this debt stress issue for once and for all, you'd have a much more amiable relationship with your spouse. The love would return, the risk of divorce would decline, and it would really make a big difference in your spousal relationship. For some of you, it's not the spouse where the dynamic's problematic. It's with your parents. And for some of you, the dynamic that's problematic is with your kids. So for some of you, the why is family. For some of you, it's about freedom. Like, we talk about debt stress, and, metaphorically, for a lot of people, it's this weight on your back that you're carrying around 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you didn't have that, if you were able to get a handle on your debt stress, you just experience a whole bunch of freedom that you didn't have before in your life. For some of you, it's travel. And I know that sounds kind of ridiculous. Like, you're like, wait a sec, I'm trying to get rid of that $5,000. Well, I think the why for some of you could be, and then you're going to spend on travel. You're going to go out and, have the life that you want to have because you've cracked something that has been holding you back. And travel could be adventure. For other people, it's not. Travel isn't adventure. It's other things. It's like, bungee jumping or skydiving in a place around the corner, but it's something like that. And for some of you, it's about home, right? So, maybe it's if I just have to crack the debt so I can save for a down payment, or I have to crack the debt stress so I can improve my credit score so I can qualify for a loan. For some of you, it's about I have to crack the debt because I'm either just needing to do some work on my house, like the roof's going to collapse, or I need a new furniture or a new furnace, or you want to do some work on your house because it's your home. You spend a lot of time there. So whatever your why is, I want you to just think about it and come up with a word. And if you've got a pen and paper, jot down the word. And it could be something I said. You're like, I'm going to steal that. It's mental health, it's friends, it's family, it's whatever. Or it could be something that I haven't mentioned that it just pops into your brain as your particular why. And as you think about that, I want to give you 3 reasons why I am so passionate about the benefits of context. The first one is it gives you language, right? Because so often you're talking about the debt and it's about the credit card and the collection agency. And if you're in a relationship with someone, it's like, you're talking about the debt itself instead of about peace of mind. Like the project is called the Peace of Mind Project. The project is called the Freedom Project. And I know some of you might be like, that is so oogly boogly, like, kumbaya, check my chakra karma, blah, blah, blah. It's not that. It's a fundamental shift in the context for the project that you are working on. Okay. Second benefit is it's a check for your behavior. So it really, having this context, it's a check for your behavior. If you've said, my why on eliminating my debt is for to buy a home or, fix up a home. But I just missed a credit card payment. It's not that you're right or wrong or bad or good, or you could have avoided it, or couldn't have avoided it. It's that behavior and whatever, like if you were to back up the truck that led to that missed credit card payment is inconsistent with the context that you have. Now, that's not to say that things don't happen, because they do. And why people miss credit card payments is not that they, consistently just couldn't care less about them. There's lots of other things going on. There's job loss and divorce and all those other things. But sometimes we don't have a handle on our debt because we aren't taking action and we aren't organized. And that's, not the full story, but it's a piece of the story. So it's a check to your behavior. The third enormous benefit of creating a context is that it keeps you motivated. Because, some people are motivated by taking that credit card debt to zero, but more often I find people are motivated to that broader, higher order benefit of peace and family and home and whatever it is, that's what's going to have them follow through and do the work. I was talking to someone, she was a reader of my book, and she was in an event like this, except for in person. And she comes up to me and she's like, okay, let me get this straight. Are you telling me that if I get a handle on my debt and I pay off my credit cards to zero, and she had not an insignificant amount of debt, are you telling me I'm going to be able to travel more? Yeah. That's what I'm telling you. So I'm telling you. And her face just went from like consternation to, oh, like the light bulb actually went off, and she could see what her motivation was to crack through and get a handle on that debt. So I want you to just kind of round that out and think about why you want to get a handle on your debt stress. And I'm going to say three additional things. This is a creation. It's not a description. So you make it up. Basically, you're making it up. You're making up a context. You made up the context of it's about them and I'm a victim. And you made up the context, it's about me and I'm a terrible person. Neither of those two things are accurate. Life happens. It's a combination of a whole bunch of factors, and you found yourself in debt. All right. So let's make up a different context, write it down on a piece of paper, and then work at like bringing that to life, because it's going to just be way more empowering. Second thing is, as you choose the word or the phrase, just do a gut check and see if it's inspiring to you. Check. Is it inspiring? Are you inspired by that? Because it really makes a big difference on the motivation front if you are. And third, it is about having an abundance mindset. And that, again, might seem really oogly boogly. And I promise we're going to get to tips and tricks in a minute. But living in scarcity is a very, very difficult place. And it's the reality for a lot of people. Imagine you're a new immigrant to Canada who was a refugee and lost everything in the country that you came from, and you got nothing. Like you maybe got the clothes on your back. How do you find a way into an abundance mindset when those are your circumstances? And a lot of people at our event today didn't just arrive as a refugee from a war-torn country. And so it might be a little bit easier for you to get into an abundance mindset, which is not to say there is no deprivation here, because as you work to get a handle on your money, you're going to either be increasing income, which is spending more time at work, or decreasing expenses, which of course will lead to some sort of deprivation. Okay. So the first trick is creating context. And so I really encourage you to think about what my why is. And then I want you to talk about the answer with someone you know. It could be your spouse, it could be a friend, whoever it is. So that's the number one trick, okay? Abracadabra, pumpkin pie, la, 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 pick a card, any card, good. And it's a 6 of spades. That's great. Look at what's on the back of the card. I just did a lion's roar to a shark because I felt like it needed an audio effect. But as I do that, that makes absolutely no sense. Sharks don't roar. It's not a thing. Okay, so the second trick that will have you really engage on getting rid of your debt stress is clarity. So what's clarity mean? Clarity means the freedom from ambiguity. It is freedom from ambiguity. And one of the issues that people deal with is that when you're dealing with debt stress, it is so hard to see things clearly, both in tangible terms, like how much debt do I really have outstanding? Some people know, but a lot of people don't know. They just know that it's a lot and it's terrifying and they don't want to look. They don't want to know. But it is also hard to see intangibly. It's not clear intangibly what the root causes are of the debt that you are dealing with. And that's a huge issue because you're like, I don't want this debt. I've got to deal with this debt. But you don't really know what it's costing you, what the consequences are, or what the root cause is. And, give you an example from my early career in which clarity made a really, really, really big difference. I went to business program. I graduated and got what was a pretty good job. I worked at Procter & Gamble on Royale facial tissue, soft on the nose, strong for the blows. I know, genius, right? And I liked it. I made good money. It was a good job, but I wasn't really happy. I remember sitting in a meeting in the research and development area of the office complex, and I was staring at a wall, literally a wall of facial tissue box cover designs. And I'm looking at that wall thinking, oh my God, I hate my life. I hate my life. And so I knew that I needed to make a change, but I didn't have clarity. I didn't have freedom from ambiguity until I went on a vacation by myself with this book. And the book was called I Could Do Anything If Only I Knew What It Was. Genius, right? And because I thought, if I read this book, I'm going to find out what I'm supposed to be doing that isn't looking at facial tissue box covers, because that's clearly not it. So I'm reading the book and I'm going through and I'm doing all the exercises. And then there was this exercise and it asked a question. If you could do anything and knew you would be successful, what would it be? If you could do anything and knew you would be successful, what would it be? Clarity. I'd be a TV reporter. You kidding? That's what I've always wanted to do. I would love to be a TV reporter. Why am I not a TV reporter? Because I'm terrified. So if I could do anything and knew I would be successful, I'd be a TV reporter, but I'm not a TV reporter. So the only thing that's happening is I'm terrified. I'm terrified. Oh, okay. And that clarity led me to quit my job, start applying to TV newsrooms, getting a job, starting BNN Bloomberg back in 1999 is when we started it, and having this wacky, crazy career. Why I say that, this is not a session about your career, but why I say that is clarity, putting something into very, very fine focus can make an extraordinary difference in how you think about things. So how does this apply to debt stress? Well, in a couple of ways. Ambiguity has consequences. Ambiguity has consequences. They are tangible and they are intangible. So tangibly, when you're not really clear on all the different debts you're managing and the interest that you're paying, it is very hard for you to develop a plan to get out of debt, which means paying a lot of interest. And I will tell you, if you got a credit card with $3,500 outstanding, which is the average amount in this country, at 20% interest, that's $700. It's a lot of money if that's all that you have outstanding. Now, a lot of people dealing with debt stress are carrying a heck of a lot more than that. The other area that is a real consequence are the intangibles. So if tangible is what you measure, intangible is what you feel. And in this area, a lot of people dealing with debt stress are dealing with extraordinary levels of frustration, despair, anger, resentment, and upset. Like the list is long, right? I mean, if you were to, just ponder and say, what am I feeling when I think about my debt stress? What am I feeling? It's probably all the words that I've said, and then less, and then more than that, and then some, right? So if you looked at that list, you wrote it down and you put a star beside your top three, you'd really get a better sense for what it is that you're dealing with. Now, so all that is fine, but what do I do with that? Well, the first thing that you do when it comes to getting clarity on your debt is write it all down. And I know that sounds like the most predictable and logical thing anyone has ever said, but a lot of people dealing with debt stress couldn't tell you what that amount is. So one piece of paper, one spreadsheet, you're going to write all the debts down, all the lenders, all the amounts, all the interest rates, all the minimum payments, and all the due dates. You're going to write it all down and you're going to total it up. Before you total it up, you may want to just be like, and I don't know if your vice of choice is an Earl Grey or a glass of water or a gin. I don't know, but it's going to take something probably that you're going to imbibe afterwards to just get a sense of that. So you're going to put it all on a piece of paper and you're going to take a look at all that, right? Always pay the minimum. Just a brief commercial here. Always pay the minimum payment on all of your debts, really work yourself into a lather to pay the minimum, because if you don't, you're breaching your contract with the lender and it's a massive hit to your credit score. And a lot of people don't really clock that. They're like, well, I've got an extra $100. I'm going to put it on this card or this debt. No. Make sure, first and foremost, you pay all those minimums so that you're in compliance with the contract that you created. The second area of clarity that I really want to focus on, and this is the one people talk less about and sometimes not at all, is what's going on for you from a health standpoint. And when I say health, I actually mean pretty holistically here. So it's physical health. So am I physically tense, or am I relaxed? Am I at the body weight that I choose, or am I 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 50 pounds higher than the debt or the weight that I choose? There is an inextricable link to your debt stress and your physical health. And I don't want to dwell on these consequences or these costs, it's so important to be aware of them because they will help tip the balance towards action, right? And for the most part, we're like, la, 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 and we'd rather watch Netflix. But the best thing is you're not watching Netflix, or at least you're not watching it and listening to me at the same time. Maybe you've got two devices going and you're, watching Succession season 3 on Crave, and you're sort of half listening to me. Listen to me. So the first is a physical health check. The second is a mental health check. Like, how am I feeling? I wake up, and what is my outlook to the world? What is my outlook to my friends and family and to my future? Because a lot of time, this debt stress is really, really costing you in the world of mental health, which I referenced when I was talking about Kate Flanders and her book, The Year of Less. The third area to look at when it comes to the health check are your relationships. If you are in an intimate relationship with a partner, that would be the first place I would look. Another place I would look, as I mentioned before, is with your parents. And another place I'd look is your relationship with your kids. When you are carrying a level of debt stress, it is quite often that those relationships really suffer. The other additional one that I would say is colleagues. Could be a boss or a subordinate at work, but if you are carrying that weight of debt stress, you may be short with your colleagues. You may not be as productive as you could be at work, and that has a cost. Now, again, the reason I'm really encouraging you to do this health check is to tally the cost so that the action that is going to be required for you to get a handle on that debt stress is weighted more heavily than the inaction that gives all of these challenges that you have over time. Okay. So the first trick we talked about was context and creating context. This second trick is to find clarity, to really think about the question, what's actually happening with your debt and with your debt stress when it comes to your dollars and when it comes to your health? And finding clarity by writing down your debts and completing that health check is going to make a really, really big difference. Okay, so you've got this context, you've got your why, you've found some clarity on debt and debt stress. The next big challenge that people have is focus. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to focus on all these things? And I call that managing complexity, right? So what's complexity? The state of being intricate or complicated. And there is so much coming at everyone all the time when it comes to getting a handle on your money. You're hearing stock market reports and cryptocurrency and tax season and RSPs and TFSAs and just 12,000 things, right? It is very difficult to figure out what is going to make the biggest difference for you. So I created this thing called the priority pyramid. And it's based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. For anyone who, took psychology at some point, remember Maslow's, it's like at the bottom is food and shelter, security. And at the tippy top is self-actualization, where you can, have this existential crisis about the purpose of your life. Well, you earn the right to self-actualize by working through the levels of the pyramid. Same with money. And so you can see at the low end of the pyramid is cash flow. Then it goes to debt. And at the very top is optimizing returns. And what I find is people who are dealing with debt stress are also trying to navigate the inputs around other things that aren't relevant to their situation in the moment. So they're hearing these things about how to save and how to invest and Bitcoin and all those things that I mentioned, when really you got one job. If you're dealing with a level of consumer debt, you have one thing you need to focus on: eliminating that debt. So the cash flow level of the pyramid is income exceeds expenses. If income isn't exceeding expenses, you've got to increase your income or cut your expenses. There's no other way. It's the only way. Once you've done that, you're positive terms of cash flow, then you move up to debt and eliminating your consumer debt. Now, you'll notice that I didn't talk a lot about mortgage debt, and it's not that it's not relevant. It's that its interest rate in these times is not so onerous that you can't carry it in a way that carrying a payday loan or a 45% alternative financial services loan is high, or a credit card is really, really high. So as you look at that pyramid, think, what do I really need to focus on? And it makes a really big difference to then only pay attention to what it is that is going to make the biggest difference for you. So, and by the way, if you have questions, I'm hoping you're emailing them or like putting them into that little box, because in a couple of minutes, about 10 minutes or so, I promise I'm going to get to your questions. So I want you to think about this idea of complexity and how if you had more complexity, you would probably have a more specific plan. Because what I find is most people who are dealing with debt and debt stress, they don't actually have a plan. They deal with it and they carry it and they feel it. And maybe more so tonight, you can see the tangible and intangible consequences, but they don't have a plan. The super basic plan could be write it down, as I mentioned, review spending, brainstorm ways to cut it, and choose a couple of things to commit to, right? So the super simple version. And I can take any questions you have, but I call this sustainable spending, A, B, and C. The A is analyzing what's coming in and what's going out. You're going to look at it. And this analyzing is different from what we know as budgeting. So this is analogous to tracking your food for 2 weeks to see where, what you're eating and maybe what the calorie count is, versus I'm going to live my life on a diet for the rest of my life, which, I would argue is not sustainable. And in financial terms, this is the analysis of what's coming in and going out, but it isn't necessarily so that you're going to then live on a budget for the rest of your life, because that can be really, really difficult to sustain over time. There are easier ways to do it. The second part, A, B, is to brainstorm. This is brainstorming some big ideas, not little ideas, not the proverbial latte. I'm not going to have a latte. No, big things. So on the income front, could you rent out a room? Could you move to a smaller house, rent a smaller place? Could you take all the dine out apps off your phone? Could you do extra shifts at work? Could you charge your adult child rent or whatever it is? So it's all the sorts of things that are possible. It's just a brainstorm list. You're not committing to anything. The C is the change. That's when you actually are committing to something. And I want it to be 2 or 3 things, right? Not 20 things, because your ability to do 20 things is limited, but choose a couple of things. And once you identify those changes that you're going to make, that's really, now in the neighborhood of a plan. It's a little bit more of a plan. I have a couple of other things that I do want to talk about on the ideas front. And that is this notion of avalanche versus snowball. Some of you may have heard this 18,000 times. Some of you may never have heard this, but this is the equivalent to the difference between a math approach to eradicating debt and a mindset approach to eradicating debt. The avalanche is math. So you've got all those debts listed, and you take the one with the highest interest rate, regardless of the balance. You make the minimum payments on everything. Take the one with the highest interest rate, even if it's the biggest, and you work on it. You chip away at it. You just do that. And the reason it's called an avalanche is that's going to take your interest expense down the fastest, right? Because you're dealing with the high rate. So if you've got one that's a debt that's at 45%, one that's at 29%, and one that's at 10%, tackling the one at 45 is going to make the biggest difference versus the one at 5. So that's the avalanche. Another approach, which a lot of people swear by, is called the snowball. And that is, you don't tackle debt based on the interest rate, you tackle it based on the balance. And you go for the lowest balance first. So let's say you've got 3 credit cards, one's a low rate card, so it's at 10%, one's a 25%, and one's a store card at 30% or something. You would go with the one with the smallest balance, regardless of the interest rate. So one's only got $200 outstanding. I'm going to pay all my minimums always, but then I'm going to eliminate the one with $200. Then I'm going to take a deep breath and start working on the $2,000 one, which I know is going to take a much longer period of time. And then you're going to work at the one with the highest balance. So that's, just a different approach. No right, no wrong. The other thing that I would say in terms of tactics are automation. So I am a huge fan of making debt repayment frictionless, easy, and spending full of friction, very, very hard. So what I mean by that is on spending, take your credit cards out of your wallet, tell your browser to forget your credit card, take the apps off your phone, set your, block Amazon.ca, block any of those other things, get off Instagram, whatever it is, so that spending simply becomes more difficult for you, which, by the way, in today's culture is very hard. Make debt repayment simple. So that is, first of all, setting up overdraft protection on your bank account, because in a month that you're short, you don't want the automation to put you into an NSF situation. So overdraft protection on your account. Then set up an automatic withdrawal in the beginning for the minimum payments on all your cards. But as you manage your cash flow so you've got a little bit more space, then you may find that you could take a particular card and pay it off in full every month. And that would be a breakthrough. Where you want to get to, ideally, is your credit cards are automatically paid at the end of the month or the day that they're due automatically. You don't even have to think about it. It just happens. Now, that's going to take some time if you're dealing with some debt because you're like, how do I make all that work? I don't know. But that is a way for you to not have to think about it. Automation, huge, huge idea. Now, there's one other, and this one, I love it because it is the notion of frequency-based budgeting. And the best example I have is people who order food in is it's so hard to say, I'm going to spend $100 on Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes per week or per month or whatever. What's easier is I'm going to order in once a week. I cannot order in more than once a week. I'm going to order in once a week. So you're budgeting not based on dollars, but based on frequency. You're going to have one big night out a month, and you're going to go out and you're going to have a lovely night. And you're going to do whatever you do once a month instead of, I'm going to spend X hundreds of dollars on this or whatever. One other wacky idea, which I heard a bunch of years ago, and I talked about it on the air, and then I got all this positive feedback. People were like, I tried that, it worked. It's the idea of a debt snake. So with a debt snake, you make a paper chain like a kid would make. So pieces of paper interlocked together, all interlocked together, each link representing an amount of debt. So say you've got $1,000 outstanding, you could have 10 chains of $100 each. Multiply that by 10 if it's actually $10,000. And then you display that debt snake somewhere prominent in your home. You do not want that debt snake to be pretty or cute. You want it to be horrifying. And you want to have a family ritual around going with the scissors and snipping that link of paper such that that debt snake begins to shrink and shrink and shrink. And that will provide a visual sense for what it is that you are accomplishing by working through that debt snake. So we have talked about the power and the genius of these other C's. The question that I would have you ask yourself on complexity is, what's the simplest plan possible? Not the most complex one, not the one that's going to win you an Academy Award, but one that will allow you to manage your complexity in a more comprehensive and more effective way. So we are creating context, we are finding clarity, we are managing complexity, and we are rounding things out with the fourth trick here, which is, I'm not going to lie, kind of my favorite. It's community. Community. So a community is a group of people with something in common. That is a community, orientation. It could be, people who live on your street, people who are left-handed. If you're left-handed, you're my people. Hello. It could be people from a particular faith group or people who went to the same college or high school. There's so many different ways to define community. It's just a group of people that have something in common. If we think about areas of life that are relevant to people and that are really important, what is genius is that there are communities that are very easy to access in lots of different areas. So, for example, running. I mentioned my friend Becky, who works at Credit Canada. If you wanted to be like her and run, it's very easy to find a community of runners. You go online and you look at running courses and you will find one in about 4 seconds. It's very, very easy. If you wanted to lose weight, it's very easy to find a community. You could, join Weight Watchers. They've got, Zoom meetings or live meetings that you can go to. There's lots of ways for you to find community around weight loss. There's lots of communities around spirituality. You could join a church. You could join a meditation group. You could join a yoga practice or whatever. Public speaking, there's Toastmasters. You could join Toastmasters. You want to get better at public speaking, join Toastmasters, and that community of people will help you get what you want. Here's the challenge. Personal finance. Woo! Almost nothing. Almost nothing. There is almost nothing that supports us in this area of life when it comes to community. And my assertion as to why that is because there is still a ridiculous taboo when it comes to talking about money. Everybody's like, you can't talk about it. It's so impolite. And I'm not talking about numbers. You're not going to go around telling everybody at work how much debt you have outstanding, but I am talking about goals. And in those other areas, there is easy discourse around, oh, are you training for a 5K or a 10K? In a Weight Watchers context, here's my goal weight. Spirituality, you could talk about what it is that you're looking to accomplish or reframe in your life. Same with public speaking. You want to be able to deliver a toast at your daughter's wedding or whatever. But in personal finance, we get so nuts about it. We cannot talk about it. And I really want to identify what I believe are the major benefits of community. I use the crazy Sellery family as an example here. So I am one of, oh my gosh, there's either 27 or 28 of us, because I have the most gorgeous nephew. His name's Liam. He's 18 months old and he is everything. But in our family, there are 3 parents, my mom, my dad, and my stepmother. They've been all at this event for Celebration. It's called Celebration. Did I mention that? We're wearing green t-shirts for Celebration. Happens every summer. They've been at that event for decades, like, I don't know, 25 years, something like that. So there's 3 parents, 6 kids, 13 grandkids, 3 humans who joined by way of adoption, who joined the family by way of adoption, and 2 same-sex marriages. So our family's like this big, crazy thing. And why I bring it up is I think our family, and hopefully your family, embodies the really amazing gifts that community provides. So communities provide support, ideas, and accountability. You need a shoulder to cry on, find it somewhere, often in family. You need ideas of how to do something. Community is a great place to go. You want accountability. You've made a promise to yourself and you want someone to hold you to that. A community of people can be really helpful for that. And that's certainly my experience as one of the crazy Sellery family people. When I say community, I want you to think about what you can get from your community and what you can give back to your community. Because some of you, again, that spectrum I had of people who are like, I may lose my house, and people who are like, I am amazing. If you're amazing, how can you make a difference to the community of people out there around you who may be more in this category over here? And there is a lack of confidence, or it boils down to a lack of generosity on the give back to community, because we're so worried about being righteous and being judgy and asking questions that we shouldn't. When someone in our life has a cancer diagnosis, the ability for you to sign up on Caring Bridge or Meal Train, bake the lasagna and put it on the doorstep, super simple, right? We can talk about cancer today. We can talk about mental health today. We still can't really talk about debt and debt stress. It's still taboo. Let's not have that be taboo. So as you look out at your community, some of you might be listening to what I say and think, there's actually an opportunity for me to give back, because I know these people who are dealing with this, and I have not done what I could do to be supportive. Some of you could receive from, could get from community in a way that you haven't already accessed it. And I don't mean, borrowing $5,000 from your parents. Maybe that you would do that, but it's more the support, ideas, and accountability that come from unlocking that incredible resource. And I'll tell you, I had the most moving experience with a person, again, at a live workshop, who stayed after the whole thing. And she's just sitting there quietly waiting, and asked if she could ask me a question. Of course, I said yes. And she said, I know that my dad would have insight, but here's the problem. He's so good at this, and I'm so bad at this, that I really don't feel like I can talk to him about it, because I'm so embarrassed. I'm so ashamed of the circumstances that I had found myself in. And her name was Cindy. I said, do you have a kid? Yeah, she does. She has 2 kids. Okay. So let's put yourself in your kids' shoes. Would you want your kids to feel like they could talk to you about anything? And she said, of course, absolutely. And how would it feel if your kid was suffering and felt that they couldn't talk to you because they were ashamed to talk to you? And she said, oh my God, I'd be horrified if my kids felt that there was anything that they couldn't talk to me about. I said, exactly. You're robbing your dad from the opportunity to make a difference for you, to be helpful, to be supportive. He doesn't know what's going on, so he can't help you. How heartbreaking would that be for him to know that you're suffering and that you haven't even talked to him about it? And she was like, of course. And so she promises to talk to him, not to ask for money, but to get his support. And he turned out to be the extraordinary man that she knew he was. He listened without judgment. He helped brainstorm. And when it was clear that she needed to sell her house and move to something different, who was the guy driving the truck? It was her dad. It was her dad. So as I'm kind of framing out this last, C factor, I want you to think about who could you get something from and who could you give something to? Who could you get something from and who could you give something to? And I'll say that there are so many resources out there. There are friends and family who can provide an ear. There are nonprofit credit counselors. So Credit Canada, we're the oldest, but we're not the only one in this country. If you Google nonprofit credit counselor, and the place where you live, you may find our name, but you could find the name of another amazing nonprofit. It's important that they be nonprofit, but another amazing nonprofit credit counselor. Because fundamentally, we're playing the same game here. We're trying to help people get out of debt. And at Credit Canada, we define our mission as helping people get out of debt so that they can get back into life. And you will pick up the phone, you will speak to a counselor, and they'll do effectively one of three things. They will help you identify the options that could be some basic budgeting and like problem solving. It could be that they will make a referral to a licensed insolvency trustee if your situation merits a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy. Or it could be that you work with that counselor to come up with a debt consolidation program in which all of your debts get combined into one payment. It comes through the nonprofit credit counseling agency and the interest rates are greatly reduced. I am oversimplifying what that debt consolidation program is, but if you're someone who's late on your payments or dealing with a level of debt stress that you notice is costing you physically and mentally, you should really pick up the phone. The other thing I would say is that there are a lot of community supports out there, and I reference this very, very quickly. There are root causes here, and they are things like job loss and divorce and mental health and ADHD and. So to really think about what the supports would be that could be helpful in that regard. Now, I'm going to wrap things up with a couple of thoughts. First, my last prompt question is who could you talk to and by when could you talk to them, either to give to or to get from in a way that you can engage community. And that will kind of bring the four tricks together to create context, to find clarity, to manage complexity, and to engage community. And I have a challenge for you. So my hope is that in our time together, and we're going to get to your questions in just a second, that you've had an idea of one thing that you could do. And my challenge to you is to do one thing in the next 7 days. And you're like, well, 7 days, who cares, whatever. In a minute, I'm going to ask you. I'm just going to ask you, and I'm going to ask you to put your thumb to the screen, even though I can't see you, with a yes or a no. And a yes or a no is completely fine either way. And why is that? Why have I made it a time-bound request? Because time is so precious. Time is so precious. So, we're not spring chickens. No matter what age you are, you're older, a year older today than you were a year ago. And time moves with the speed of light. This pandemic it's going to be 2 years old this coming March 13th. 2 years. Think of all the babies that have been born in that time. Think of all the things that have happened in that time. Think of all the things that haven't happened in that time. 2 years is a very, very long time, and time is precious. I am doing this event from my home, 20 feet away, is a 12-year-old human who is growing physically and mentally and intellectually at the speed of light. Any of you out there who are parents, you're like, whoosh. That was the fastest thing I've ever seen in my life. Time is so very precious. So if you accept my request to do one thing in the next 7 days to get a better handle on your debt stress, just give me a nod and a thumbs up. If you're watching with someone else, I want you to look into your eyes and roll your eyes with them and be like, oh, who is this guy? He is so ridiculous, but you're going to do something. And if your answer is no, just give me a shake of the head and I will know karmically that you've just chosen not to accept my request. Doesn't mean anything bad, good, or otherwise. You've just chosen not to make that request or not to accept that request, which is totally fine. Okay. I'm going to get to your question. I know I only have 2 minutes and I actually have to now log into my second computer. Tanvi's been adding questions here, but I'm going to just log into my computer here and see what they are. Oh my gosh. Okay. So good. My problem, here's question number 1. My problem is that I make enough, but I'm always in the red within 2 weeks of my pension, and I don't know how to budget. Okay, I love this question because it goes back to this analyze, brainstorm, change. Where's your money going? And really getting crystal clear on where it is that the money is going, and then what the sort of changes are that you can do. Because it could be that it's discretionary spending. It also could be that your life is just not built to pay for a life that is consistent with your pension income. So you actually need to make some systemic changes, and that can be a really, really important thing. Question here: how can I be inspired by my context? I'm drowning. Such a great question. So if you weren't drowning, what would be in it for you to get a handle on your debt stress? So what's the opposite of drowning? Peace of mind, certainly. And it's not like this is going to necessarily be like that, but if you can find enough of a context to hold on to then get you to the find clarity part of the process, I think it would make a really big difference. And Melissa's the name of the question. Melissa, if that's you, if you're drowning, you should pick up and call us. Pick up the phone and call us. creditcanada.com. You should call us. Everyone says you need to watch the small spending like coffee subscriptions. Does it really help to cut these from my monthly expenses? I'm going to answer this in 2 ways. Number 1, it's up for you to decide because I don't know anything about your expenses. So if you don't have a lot of wiggle room here, it could be that the, $100 on streaming services could make a difference. Mostly they don't. Mostly the things that really reorient our life are the big things that we might not know we're spending money on. So here's an example: a car payment. If you have a big car payment, or you're leasing a car and that's like $500 or $1,000 a month, that's significant. So when you look at your analyze, brainstorm, change, how could you get rid of that car? Like what would life look like if you got rid of that car? And I'm not saying it's going to be fun. What if you didn't drive? If you're now starting to go back to work, if you didn't drive to work, what would that save in gas and parking if you work in a major center? So, okay. We have no credit. My wife claimed bankruptcy 4 years ago. We had a joint account. How do I find out what collection agency is after me? You should pick up the phone and call us too. I don't know how you would figure out which collection agency other than when you pick up the phone, and you should pick up the phone, you can ask them which collection agency you are. Now, you should also make sure that you both have your credit scores, because when someone files for bankruptcy protection, that does leave your credit report and no longer affects your score at the 6 or 7 year mark. So you're relatively close. So get your score, give us a call, and begin to look at how you can rebuild your life, even given that context. Okay. One last question here, because we're at our time. Everyone says cryptocurrency is an opportunity. I thought I could make some quick money and make an investment in Dogecoin. I lost $5,000, and now I have lost our yearly vacation money. What do I do? Okay, Ritesh, first of all, don't do that again. Any of these get rich quick things, cryptocurrency, whatever, fill in the blank, they're not things that I would recommend you do, especially if you're carrying a level of debt, right? So what can you do? Learn from your mistakes. You might need to just write yourself a little note and say, what did I learn? It may be that you're young or young-ish, and that mistake can be really helpful for you. So I'm old enough to have been around during the dot-com boom and bust. And I wouldn't say I lost a ridiculous amount of money in absolute terms, but in relative terms, I lost a lot of money in the dot-com bust because I thought it was easy. A lot of people think cryptocurrency investing is easy. It is not easy. And so I would just really think about what is it that you're focused on. And cryptocurrency is at the level of optimizing returns. It's at the tippy top of the pyramid. It is not at the bottom of the pyramid. So focus on doing the most important things and do it well. One last question here from Vikram. What if my why differs from that of my partner or spouse? Genius. 80% chance it will. You add an and sign between the two of them. So my context for money, not so much for debt stress, but my context for money is adventure. My husband's context for money is beauty. So we focus on adventure and beauty. And where there's incredible intersection is in hiking. So this past summer, we went hiking on the West Coast Trail, super adventurous, absolutely beautiful. And where we have trade-offs are his view of a beautiful environment, like our home, is much more advanced than mine. It's much more important to him. So we make those trades to say, okay, all right, well, we'll put a new bathroom in. Really, I would just rather put the money into the RRSPs, but we'll find those the ways of sorting through and coming to a conclusion that works for both people. We're at our time. Clearly, I could talk all night. Now, the most important thank you that I want to make is to Home Equity Bank for supporting our event. We had their logo up there. They've been a real supporter for Financial Literacy Month overall, and we're grateful for that. I also want to thank all of our folks at Credit Canada. I hope our phones are going to ring off the hook tomorrow. People are like, and that is our counselors. It's our admin team who sort out all the logistics. It's all the people that make that operation go. And I represent Credit Canada. I work for Credit Canada, but I want you to know that I'm a huge believer in nonprofit credit counseling as a way to make a difference for Canadians. Thank you for joining us. We're going to do another event, a little bit different in format in 10 days. You can find out more about it at creditcanada.com/FLM. We've got two extraordinary mental health professionals who are going to join us to talk about de-stressing. So it's not going to be about budgeting. It's going to be about, okay, like, how do I have the conversation with my spouse? How do I deal with my own emotions? Really the sort of soft skills associated with getting a handle on debt stress. It has been such a pleasure to be with you. Have a great, great time, and we'll talk to you later.